everybody, Cal Banyan's Hypnosis, etc. with Meredith Locker. And if you're watching this anywhere else except calbanyan.com, you want to go there now because right below this video is all the supporting text and information and graphics and links and stuff like that. Whew, boy, am I excited to be here today. Let me tell you what, and I'm really excited to be here with my hypno star, Meredith Locker. She's a former talk therapist, psychotherapist. She's got a master's degree in psychology. She's a real hypno one percenter. She's among the best of the best in the profession, and I'm so glad to have her with us again. How you doing, Meredith?
I'm doing great, Cal. Happy to be back.
Boy, that was quick. I've never heard you just say one or two sentences before.
Well, I do. I do want to say some more things. I'm so used to just getting a few snippets.
I was in shock.
Well, you know, our podcasts have been going so long lately that I'm really trying to speed things up. But I do want to tell everybody a little bit about you because I realize that not everybody tuning in even knows who you are. They might have kind of stumbled over these podcasts. I mean, I am just shocked that someone might not know who you are because to me, you are the guru of all gurus in this profession. But a lot of people don't know that you have a master's in psychology as well, that you did work as a talk therapist, a psychotherapist as well, and then you came into this profession and you didn't just rest on your laurels. You created a new form, a new process of hypnosis called 5-Path, and because we're going to be getting into this soon, I'll go ahead and just tell you what 5-Path is. 5-Path is a 5-phase process to help resolve all kinds of issues, any issue at all that can be benefited by relieving stress or shifting emotion in various ways can be benefited by the 5-Path process. It's a systematic approach where the first phase is preparation, testing, and convincing. And this is the phase where you prepare the client to have a successful process. And you don't want to move on to phase 2 until you've made sure that you've properly prepared the client for what's coming next. Phase 2 is age regression and age progression, where you take the client and you resolve these excess emotions that you find in the age regression, and regressing off of the feeling or off of a situation or time or symptom to get them there. Phase 3 is forgiveness of others, and so we call it FOO. You might hear us say FOO, which sounds kind of funny to those of you who don't know 5-Path, but it's forgiveness of others, and that's where we're going to help the client to shift out of the anger that they might have towards all kinds of people in their life. And then phase 4 is forgiveness of self, and that's where we're going to help to resolve the feelings that you have about yourself for all of the mistakes that you've made in your life. And then we move into phase 5 if it's necessary, which is parts mediation, and we help the client to resolve their issues of conflict within themselves, secondary gain issues, reasons why they might be holding on to the issue, whatever it is that they're continuing to do. And Cal Banyan is the creator of this beautiful process that I use with every single one of my clients. Thank you, Cal.
Oh gosh, thank you. And I want to say that 5-Path is not something I just dreamed up from scratch. I mean, it's really a system that's been built on from people and from the field of hypnosis and also the field of psychology. For example, in the field of hypnosis, I've pulled up a list while you were doing all that stuff. Harry Aarons, Charles Tebbets, Jerry Kine, Gil Boyne, and others. And also from the field of hypnosis and psychology, Franz Mesmer with his animal magnetism, and also some other strong contributors to the process is Dr. Ivan Pavlov with his classical conditioning, Dr. Fritz Perls with his Gestalt therapy, and Aaron Beck's cognitive approach to psychology and helping people. Good. Hey, let me make a couple of announcements and we'll get rolling with some questions because we want to kind of take off where we left off with last episode on that Father's theme. Please go to hypnosiscenter.com. That's one of my main websites where I have lots of free articles and things like that. And also my schedule for my hypnosis classes. I have a hypnosis certification, NGH approved hypnosis certification course coming up in October, 10-day course. and it's got 5-path and 7-path as part of the course. And then later on in November, we have the Week of Power. And what's the Week of Power? It is a 7-day course. Kind of gets you in. If you need to already be certified through another major hypnosis organization. A minimum number of hours of training, and then you can take this course, and we're going to give you not just the basics that you learned before, advanced basics, intermediate, and then the advanced stuff, the 5-path and 7-path self-hypnosis. What else I want to talk about? Our Hypnospace continues to grow. It's getting better and better all the time. Our Facebook.com/hypnosis ECT or Hypnosis Etc. fan page, where you can get the up-to-date stuff, what's going on with this show there. And that's it. Why don't you take it over there, Meredith?
Wonderful. Well, last podcast we started talking about a client that was having trouble resolving issues of loneliness, and we discussed that it was probably more fear-based than that, and it had to do with the father. And so if you haven't checked out that podcast, definitely check it out. We got into some interesting 5-path nitty-gritty there. And continuing with the same father issue theme, we have a post that was posted to our Hypnospace, the Ask Cal group, which if you're not already a member of that group, and if you're not already posting questions or comments on that group, please do so. We really look there first before we go anywhere else to find questions and comments to bring to this show. And this was posted by Bruce, and he talked about a client in the recent past where they did age regression apparently, and found that the ISE, apparently, he doesn't say that word, that particularly, but the ISE was the death of his father, who died at his house, okay, or at least that was a major SSE, subsequent sensitizing event, as opposed to an initial sensitizing event. And he felt that he let his father down in many areas, and felt a responsibility for not being able to save his father, who had died in his home. And so in forgiveness of others, he put everyone but his father in the chair. And after going through everyone else, this hypnotherapist, Bruce, suggested that they put the father in the chair. And apparently he didn't have any anger or any other negative emotions towards his father. So then Bruce decided to guide him while in the chair to dealing with his feelings of letting his father down, essentially turning the foo session into a chair therapy session, kind of a father forgiving client as opposed to client forgiving father. So he kind of switched the tables there, and he said, I don't remember ever hearing anyone using foo or chair therapy for relieving emotions that did not require the client to forgive someone else. Before we get into his specific questions, Cal, do you want to talk about this usage at all? Any thoughts on that?
So we kind of talked a little bit about this one before the show, right?
Before the show?
Yep.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And did I show any concerns about using the process in this way?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I'm thinking, one of the things is I want to make sure that people understand that this chair therapy is really an offshoot of the Fritz Perls chair therapy that he developed. And as far as I know, the first time it was ever used, and I can't be 100% sure of this, was by Jerry Kind to use it in hypnosis. A lot of these things kind of get shrouded in mystery, but I remember one time I was at Jerry's house and asked him, where'd you get the idea for using this chair therapy with a client? And he said he was working with a client doing age regression, and they kind of got stuck, and he asked the client who was in hypnosis, what do we have to do here to resolve this issue? And she said, well, I guess I'd have to forgive him. And then apparently Jerry kind of adapted, I can't really speak for Jerry on this, but adapted Fritz Perls chair therapy, because that's what he calls it now. So the process that 5-pathers use for doing forgiveness work is to put the client and the person who created anger in the client in they're both in this they're both in this room. I call it the round room, and they're facing each other, and the individual who's the client who has the anger is then encouraged to express that anger towards the offender. There might be the father, the mother, whoever it was. And then we go through a specific process using the 10 keys to forgiveness to be able to get that client to forgive that individual, which is important because, as I talk about in all my podcasts, it's the emotions that drive the behaviors. So as we were talking about this earlier, I remember thinking, okay, this client is being put in this hallucinated room. I mean, the person's in somnambulism. He or she, in this case, it's a he, is hallucinating being in this room, and there's two chairs. He's in one chair. His father's in this other chair, and he's saying, "I don't have any anger towards my father." And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, anytime two people are together for years and years and years, and particularly when one has way more power than the other, like in the experience of a parent-child, and with one of those people being a child, and they're a completely different perspective on the situation, what's going to happen is our client growing up with that parent, no matter how idyllic that parent was, because reality doesn't have anything to do with it, the perception of the child will eventually happen that what is going on with that parent is not fair. It might be because they can't watch a television program. It might be because they have to go to bed early, or they can't wear the kind of shoes they want, or they have to get a haircut when they don't want to. And these things are going to happen over and over again in the time with that parent. And so I'm thinking, here's this person that says, I don't have any anger towards my father. This person is either, not smart enough to be going through the process, because we do need someone of normal intelligence. I mean, and they don't just understand the instruction or what's being suggested, or they are non-compliant. And so people often ask me, Cal, why is it that 5-path is structured the way it is? Phase 1, preparation, testing, and convincing of the client for proper depth. Number 2, age regression. Number 3, FOO, or forgiveness of others, and then forgiveness of self, and then parts mediation therapy. After we have gone through the age regression work with the client, now we have a very good history of the issue, for this client. And as we go back, I would find out, did at any time this client get angry at their father? Was there any perceptions of that's not fair? And whenever I do the age regression, I write these notes down so that I have them in front of me. Now, for example, if the person doesn't feel good about him or herself because the parent, mother or father, in this case we're talking about the father, was overcritical, or never said I loved you, or didn't value the child, or whatever it is, and that's the cause of the problem, then the child is going to perceive that as not being fair. And so I just cannot imagine a child going through the entire developmental process with a parent and not having some anger. So by having the notes in front of me from the age regression, I can point out times in the person's past where the parent, from the child's perspective, saw the situation as not completely 100% fair. And so I can ask the grown-up who's in the round room ready to do the forgiveness with the adult, I say, okay, now your father, when you were 5, because of my notes in the age regression, right, said, something wrong with you, boy, or you better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about, and all these different kinds of things. And I can just ask them, was that fair? And they're going to say, well, no. I said, how did that make you feel? And now we're going to find out that the child was angry, and now we can have the grown-up say, on behalf of the child, tell grown up, you made me angry when, and they can start talking about these times in the child's past or in your client's past. And usually once you get them to admit to being angry about one thing, then the floodgates open and we're going to be able to get a lot of expression of the anger, which is really important that we get that expression, the you hurt me when, you made me feel, these kind of statements out of the person so that we can start getting some of that anger out so that we can then move on to the forgiveness process. Anything else you want to add to that, Meredith?
Well, yeah, he might even be mad that the dad died in his home and put the burden of that on him. It doesn't necessarily have to be something from childhood that you use to open the floodgates. But it's interesting. I think that people sometimes don't know if they should overcome the blockage to releasing the anger or admitting the anger, which would be the feelings of guilt that this particular client had about not saving his father first, or if they should instigate the releasing of the anger and go through traditional foo first. Would you see any benefit to doing what this particular hypnotist did as far as helping him to overcome his feelings of guilt, having the father work with him to forgive the client first and then trying to get traditional foo? Or would you just go straight for the, bringing up the time that he did something that should have made him angry and doing foo first?
Really good questions. One of the things is having the father forgive the client is secondary to the client forgiving the father. Now, how old was the client when the father died?
Yeah, that information I do not have.
Okay. So in the previous example, it was 2. Now, let's say that, for example, that it was once again at 2 or 3 years old. Now, the child may not have been angry at the time. They might have just been fearful or sad. But then later on, could be years later, when he sees other children's fathers there for them, years after the father dies, the client later on in his life, now he's maybe 6 or 16, could be angry at his father. This can only be revealed in the regression work. So I'm always going to, in forgiveness of others, work on forgiving the other person. Now, if guilt is an issue, guilt isn't resolved by having the other person forgive you. Guilt is resolved by forgiving yourself for what is done. And having this other person who's been dead for 10, 20, 30 years forgive you, at very best would be secondary to forgiving yourself. You might, I'm trying to think of what kind of feeling you would have, but really guilt is when you feel like, according to the secret language of feelings, the feeling of guilt is generated by the thought. Remember, all the emotions comes from thoughts, is generated by thinking you did someone else wrong. Now, if you can revisit that perception, I did someone wrong, there's 3 things that we do according to the secret language of feelings. One, we do a reality check. Gosh, did I really do someone wrong? And if we can look at it realistically and discover we didn't do someone wrong at all, then the guilt will disappear because it's based on the perception that you did someone wrong. Secondly is, okay, you could decide that, yes, I did someone wrong, and now if that feeling is based in reality, the emotion is good. It's there to motivate you to do the sometimes difficult things you need to do to make up for what you did to that person. That's what that emotion is there for. But sometimes we cannot make it up to someone because they've passed away. And then what's left is forgiving ourselves for having done that one thing wrong. Now, here's a really cool statement or question I'll ask people that sometimes really helps them forgive themselves. I say, if you knew then what you know now, would you like to have handled things differently? And if they say, yes, I would like to have handled things differently, which is always the case if they're feeling guilty, then you can say, well, you didn't know then what you know now, so you couldn't handle things differently. But if you had known, you would have liked to have handled things differently. And that makes you forgivable. And almost always they'll go, they'll exhale this sigh of relief, and then we can get that forgiveness done. How are we doing there, Meredith?
Beautiful. Yeah, I just love this. I think we've brought up so many important points. He did have a couple specific questions. He said, after doing this kind of alternative chair therapy that he did to have the father forgive, he asked, would it have been better to have done a separate session to deal with this? And in essence, you've already answered this by saying that really it wasn't about having the father forgive him, it was about having him forgive himself. And indeed, we typically, not always, but typically do that in a separate session, forgiveness of self. And then his other question would be, should he have gotten the client's permission outside of hypnosis to go to the space of doing chair therapy work with his father?
Oh no, I never get permission to do the work that I'm going to do with a client beforehand. I never will bring up age regression. I'll never bring up the forgiveness work. And it's completely ethical to do that approach, because bringing up those questions can make people get them stressed out, fearful about doing the work that needs to be done, and that can inhibit the work. And secondly, they can always decline doing the work while they're in hypnosis. And so if they don't want to go there, then they can just not go there. All right, we're over our time. Why don't you go ahead and wrap it up?
All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Bruce, for your wonderful case study and questions. Please do submit your questions and comments to us. You can do that on our hypnospace.com at Ask Cal, the Ask Cal group. Please join it. You can do it on the new Facebook fan page, and you can also send us emails directly. My email address is meredith@yourpathhypnosis.com. If you're watching this on calbanyan.com, it's right down there. I'm doing it like you do, Cal. This is Meredith Locker signing off.
All right, please visit hypnosiscenter.com. All my classes are there, and plus a whole bunch of other stuff. Go to hypnosis.org, where we organize the world of hypnosis for you. You can get a free hypnosis directory listing there. And of course, please join our fan page on facebook.com/hypnosisect, hypnosisect. That's it. Cal Banyan signing off. This recording is the property of Cal Banyan and Cal Banyan's Banyan Publishing Incorporated. All rights reserved. For private use only. May not be duplicated without written permission.